Welcome to Magnificat TV News, dedicated to providing news of the Church. Today is Wednesday, February 1st, 2023, and these are our news. The Pope is in Africa visiting Congo and South Sudan to promote reconciliation in those two countries which had been hard hit by civil war. The Vatican has banned German dioceses from setting up synodal councils, which one of the measures approved by the German Senate. The German bishops' response to the Vatican's ban was that they will go ahead with the implementation of the synod councils. In an interview with the Associated Press, the Pope criticized the German Senate and pointed out that homosexual acts are always a sin. The president of the German bishops has hit back at the Pope, accusing him of not daring to say things to their faces and governing the Church throughout interviews. The Pope arrived in Congo on Tuesday and will go to South Sudan on Friday on a trip aimed at promoting internal reconciliation in both nations.
From yesterday, Tuesday, until next Sunday, the Pope will visit two African nations characterized by frequent and bloody civil wars, Congo and South Sudan. Despite his obvious knee problems, the Pontiff has decided to make the trip in order to promote internal reconciliation in both countries. On his arrival yesterday in the Congolese capital, Kinshasa, he went to the presidential palace for the customary courtesy visit to the country's first president. He then met with the diplomatic corps accredited in the African nation. Today, Wednesday, and Thursday, he will remain in Congo. Among other events, he will meet with refugees from the east of the country, where ethnic strife is raging, as well as usual, with Jesuits. On Friday, he will travel to South Sudan, the most difficult stage of his trip. He will be accompanied by the President of the Anglican Communion and the moderator of the Church of Scotland, in an attempt to show unity among those religious leaders, in order to appeal to political leaders. On Saturday, he will meet with bishops and priests, as well as Jesuits. On Sunday, he will celebrate Holy Mass, which is expected to be attended by thousands of Catholics. He will then return to Rome.
In a letter to the President of the German Bishops' Conference, Secretary of the State, Cardinal Parolin, has banned the establishment of synod councils.
Cardinal Parolin's letter is a response to a letter from 5 German bishops on the controversial Synodal Committee. The Holy Father has specifically approved the letter to the President of the German Episcopate. Cardinals Laderia and Wellet are co-signatories. The letter of the Secretary of State states that neither the Synodal Way nor any body established by it nor any episcopal conference has the competence to establish the Synodal Council at national, diocesan or parish level. These synodal councils will be composed of a majority of lay people and of bishops or the priest, in the case of parish councils, will be one of them. Their decisions will be binding, even if the bishop or priest has opposed them. There will be a national synodal council which will have authority over the bishops' conference. Cardinal Wolke, Archbishop of Cologne and one of those who asked the Vatican to rule on the case, has welcomed the letter. With it, he said, Rome had made it clear that the Synodal Council could not be constituted at national, diocesan or parish level.
Following the Vatican's ban on synodal councils, the President of the German bishops has announced that they will not obey and will go ahead.
In a press release issued by the same afternoon that the Vatican's ban on the synodal councils became known, the Bishops' Conference has stated that the letter from Rome has been discussed in the Permanent Council and that they see no contradiction between the synodal councils and the canon law, in which therefore not obey the Vatican's order. According to the press release, the concern expressed in the Vatican's letter that a new body could be placed above the Bishops' Conference or undermine the authority of individual bishops is not justified. The majority of the Permanent Council has reaffirmed its willingness to implement the Synod Assembly resolution of the Synodal Committee and to resume consultations. In view of this decision not to obey Rome, Cardinal Ouellet, President of the Dicastery for Bishops, said that the unity of the Church is being put at serious risk. Cardinal Kasper, a German cardinal, an advisor to the Pope, has also spoken out. Kasper strongly supported the Vatican's letter. The cardinal warned that to reject the letter is to stand on the brink of schism. The letter behind which is the authority of the Pope and ultimately of the Second Vatican Council is absolutely clear, he said.
The Pope, in an interview with the Associated Press, recalled that homosexual acts are always a sin and criticized the German Synod.
Pope Francis has given an interview to the Associated Press in which he has indicated that homosexuality is not a crime, but it is always a sin. He also warned that the German Synod is elitist and ideological. Francis was asked about the synodal process in Germany. The Pope said that while dialogue is good, the German experience does not help, and he indicated that the process to date has been led by the elite and does not involve the whole people of God, warning that the goal must always be unity. The danger here is that something very ideological creeps in. When ideology gets into ecclesial processes, the Holy Spirit goes home, because ideology defeats the Holy Spirit. Asked about homosexuality, Francis recalled the Church's teaching that homosexual activity is always sinful, although it should not be considered a crime to be persecuted by law. In response to the uproar caused by his words, Jesuit James Martin immediately asked him for clarification, and the pontiff replied immediately, accepting that the circumstances in which homosexual acts take place can diminish or nullify guilt.
The response to the Pope's criticism of the German Synod was swift. The president of the German bishops immediately accused him of cowardice.
The president of the German Bishops' Conference, Monsignor Bathing, publicly criticized the Pope for seeking to govern the Church through interviews. He has also questioned why the Pope did not tell the German bishops in Rome the truth during his recent ad limina visit. The journalist who was interviewing Bathing reminded him of what the Pope had just said in an interview with the Associated Press, that the German Synod was not useful. He added, "You, on the other hand, have maintained for years that Francis supports the synodal path. Why have you been deceiving the faithful in Germany for so long?" Batzing responded with another question. Why didn't the Pope talk to us about this when we were with him in November? He also referred to Cardinal Parolin's letter forbidding the establishment of synodal councils. "It is true," said Bathing, "that there are fundamentally different ideas of synodality. The Pope understands it as a broad collection of opinions. Then the bishops discuss them more concretely, and in the end, there is no man at the top who makes the decision. I do not think that it is the kind of synodality that is sustainable in the 21st century. We German bishops are looking for a possibility of real consultation and real joint decision-making." Batzing rejected the Pope's accusation of the ideologization of the German Synod, which he illustrated with the example of celibacy. The question has been discussed for 60 years, he said, and Pope Francis has allowed the debate even in the Amazon Synod. To now call that the ideological debate where the Holy Spirit flies out of the room as if flying, what is the point? Patzing stressed that the Pope also encouraged him that it was up to the Church in Germany to draw the consequences of the sex abuse scandal. However, he said the latest letter from the Vatican, as well as talks in Rome, make him suspect that they simply no longer want to see the systemic causes, background, and factors of this scandal.
Our editorial this week is devoted to commenting on the decision of the German bishops not to obey the order given by the Vatican on the Synod Councils. The week started badly. It has ended worse. The German bishops' defiance to the Vatican, to the Pope, it's open, notorious, and public. The differences between the two currents within the Church are increasing, and yet nothing is happening. This week, we learned that there had been a letter from 5 German bishops presided over, led by the Cardinal of Cologne, Walkie. A letter to the Vatican asking for an opinion on whether or not to obey the decision of the German Synod. The Synod was urging the German bishops to implement in their diocese one of its decisions, that in all the diocese and a synodal council should be set up in which the bishop could be a member, but made up of a majority of lay people. And this council should have not a consultative character, as is implied by the word council, but a deliberated decision-making character. Therefore, the bishop would only be a member of this council, and one majority, practically all of whom are lay people, would decide. It is what would necessarily have to be applied. The diocesan synodal council would be followed by parish councils, in which also priests would be only one in a group of lay people, and will become in fact an employee of the Church. And it will be the lay people who would decide everything, not only the administration, but even the content of the homilies. A proof of this is that Monsignor Batzin, who is the president of the German bishops, has already created a synodal council in his diocese in Limburg, and as a result of this application, obeying to the synodal council, of which he is a member, he has ordered that all priests of the diocese have to apply the gender ideology in their pastoral work. It is mandatory in Limburg to apply the gender ideology in the pastoral care carried out by priests. In response to this, these 5 bishops appeal to the Vatican and ask whether or not it was obligatory to set these diocesan synodal councils in their diocese, followed, I repeat, by deliberated parish councils. The Vatican's response, which we have heard this week, has been swift, has been also sharp and clear. In a letter published with the express authorization of the Pope, 3 cardinals, the same cardinals who had spoke at the time of the ad limina visit to Rome of the German Bishops' Conference, 3 cardinals, the Secretary of the State, Cardinal Parolin, the President of the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, Cardinal Adaria, and the President of the Dicastery of the Bishops, Cardinal Newslette, have signed this letter, I repeat, published with the express authorization of the Pope, in which they prohibit, no advise, they prohibit the creation of these diocesan concils, with authority is above the authority of the bishop, because the bishop is one more in a context where the majority are lay people. They say that this nullifies the meaning of the bishop's mission, the institution of the bishop as a supreme pastor of the church in that diocese, always in communion with the universal church. Well, in the face of this very clear, categorical decision of the Vatican, the response has not long in coming, and immediately the German Synodal Council said that they were going to continue to apply these diocesan synodal councils in the diocese because, according to them, it was not against the canon law establishes. Again, there was a response from the Vatican, in this case, the president of the Dicastery for Bishops, Cardinal Newslette, where he doubts that this is not against the canon law, and says that this is seriously damaging the unity of the Church. Open confrontation, already publicly, disobeying, and norm, publicly, given explicitly by the Vatican. In this context, which has lasted the whole week, the Pope is interviewed by the Association Press, an interview in which the Pope talks about many things: his health, his possibly resignation. He says no. He talks about many things. For example, he also talks about the issue of the homosexuality and says that the exercise of homosexuality, although he talks about homosexuality and not the exercise of homosexuality, he says that homosexuality should be a crime, because there are countries that publish it, but they says always is a sin. Although he says that it's always a sin, it takes for a fact the exercise of homosexuality is always a sin. Certainly, this goes against the gender ideology that is already being applied. I have given the example of the Diocese of Limburgo, which is already being applied in the German. But he's much more direct when asked about the German Synod. And he says that it is the path that does not favor unity, that is an elitist, and that it is ideologized. That is how he defines it. It is therefore a clear criticism of the German Synod, but he adds that he considers the German bishops have good intentions, and most of all, he says that dialogue must continue. This is the key. This is the core of the problem. It is time to take decision in the face of an open and clear disobedience, as for example, two German cardinals, Cardinal Müller and Cardinal Brandt Müller, claims. It is time to take decisions in applying canon law against those who disobey, or it is time to continue to give dialogue a chance, with the risk that this becomes a tacit permission to carry out things that are forbidden and that will be very difficult to reverse. The week did not end this week. The controversy of the week didn't end up with this. Cardinal Hollerich, who is the Archbishop of Luxembourg and President of the European Episcopal Conference, is in a way President of the European Bishops, a man very close to the German Synod, at least on some of the issues, for example that of the sexual morality of the Church, has invented with a very critical statement against Monsignor Gainswing, against the personal secretary of Pope Emeritus Benedict, says that the book that was published, in which the life and opinions of the late Pope during his time as a Pontific Emeritus are collected, that this book is nothing more than a desire for promenades, a craving for promenades, he said, and that in reality it represents a betrayal of the will of the Pope, who wanted all this to be kept in secret. Confrontations and attacks, more and more manifest and public, open among of them with harsh disqualifications such as those of Hollerich against Gainswain. But the core of the matter is there. We must continue the dialogue, or it's time to take decisions and apply law against those who openly and publicly disobeyed. It is time to continue dialogue, which means that the risk of tacitly, implicitly giving permission to those who disobeyed exists, or it is time to say that this is as far as we can have to come. It is a very difficult decision. It is a decision that it is solely up to the Pope. I repeat, it is a very difficult decision to make, either one thing or another. The Pope opts for dialogue, at least for now, although he gives permission to say to those who disobey that he does not give permission to continue to do so. The Pope opts for dialogue, at least, I repeat, so far. It is history that will judge. It is history that will judge whether he is right or wrong with this decision. But precisely because it is a very difficult decision, and because we are at a decisive moment, it is why I insist that we must pray. We must pray for the Church. We must pray for the Pope, so that he allows himself to be enlightened by the Holy Spirit and to take decisions that the Holy Spirit desires to take for the good of the Church. See you next week, God willing. We will continue to keep you informed of what is happening in the Church, but during the meantime, you can visit our website, www.magnificat.tv. See you next week, God willing.